Today is Bill Gaither's 90th birthday, and this video is about the message he gave his family, the one they will carry for the rest of their lives. 90 years ago, on a farm in Alexandria, Indiana, a baby boy came into the world, and neither he nor the people who loved him had any idea that his voice, his pen, and his faith would one day reach into the hearts of more than 100 million people. In the world of gospel music, you don't just celebrate 90, you stop moving. You stand still. You remember. Because Bill Gaither didn't simply write songs. He wrote the soundtrack to the faith of millions of people. The songs that played at bedsides and funerals, and in the moments when there was nothing left to hold on to except the truth inside the lyrics. And this year, at 90, he said something to his family that will travel with them long after the celebration is over. Stay with me. The 28th of March, 1936. Franklin Roosevelt sat in the White House. The country was still clawing its way out of the Great Depression. And in a small farming community in central Indiana, George and Leila Gaither welcomed a son they named William James Gaither. Growing up in Alexandria, Bill was surrounded by church music before he could name what it was: piano, harmony, voices rising in an old sanctuary that smelled of wood polish and something older than that, something that lives in rooms where people have sung their honest prayers for generations. Gospel music wasn't entertainment in that house. It was the daily language of the family. His first career had nothing to do with recording studios or concert stages. Gaither spent his early professional years as an English teacher, standing at a chalkboard correcting grammar, which makes a certain kind of sense when you consider how carefully he would later choose every word he put into a song. The music was always there, though, pressing from the inside out, waiting for the moment he stopped trying to contain it. Here are 10 things worth knowing about Bill Gaither before we go any further. The Bill Gaither Trio launched in the late 1950s with his siblings Danny and Mary Ann, and that family harmony was the original blueprint for everything that followed. Gloria Sickal came into his life while both of them were teachers. She taught French, he taught English, and the partnership they built professionally and personally has lasted more than 60 years. Their first co-written song was "He Touched Me," and Elvis Presley recorded it, and it won a Grammy. Bill and Gloria have written more than 700 songs together, which is a number that deserves a moment of silence. The Gaither Vocal Band, founded by Bill in 1981, has accumulated more Dove Awards than any other group in the history of gospel music, and Bill himself has won more Dove Awards individually than any other artist the Gospel Music Association has ever recognized. In 1991, he set up cameras in his living room in Alexandria, Indiana, gathered a group of old friends, and told them to sing. And what came out of that afternoon became the Gaither Homecoming video series, the most successful gospel video franchise ever produced, with tens of millions of copies sold worldwide and still selling today. Bill and Gloria have 3 children, Suzanne, Amy, and Benjamin, all of whom grew up inside the ministry and became part of it. And through all of it, through every award and every record and every sold-out homecoming event, Bill Gaither has never left Alexandria, Indiana. Same town, same roots. He never left. Now, about that living room in 1991, because that story deserves more than a line. Gaither called up a group of gospel singers who were mostly past their commercial prime, some of them nearly forgotten by a music industry that had moved on, set up cameras with no grand production plan, and told them, "Let's just sing together. Let's remember what this was." What nobody expected was what happened when the footage went out into the world. The lighting wasn't perfect. The production wasn't polished. The singers were older, and some of them were in poor health. None of that mattered, because what the cameras caught was something studios spend millions trying to manufacture and almost never find. Vestal Goodman throwing her whole body into a laugh. J. D. Sumner, the man who sang bass for Elvis Presley, closing his eyes and finding that voice again, like it had been waiting for him. People who had given their entire lives to gospel music, sitting in a circle, still believing every word. Gaither hadn't set out to build a franchise that day. He had set out to preserve something that was disappearing, and the result was that he did both at once. Now here's the thing that brought you to this video. A birthday headline gets you to click. But what Bill Gaither has said to his family, the message behind the milestone, that's what stays with you after the video ends. Over decades of interviews and conversations that were supposed to be about music and ministry, Gaither kept returning to the same territory: legacy, love, and what a man sees when he looks back from the far end of a long road. Understanding Bill Gaither means starting with Gloria Gaither, because she is where the real story begins. Married since 1962, their partnership has never been simply a marriage. In the conventional sense, it has been a creative and spiritual collaboration that produced more than 700 songs and shaped the direction of American gospel music for half a century. Gloria doesn't just write lyrics. Her gift is taking the emotional shape of something Bill feels at the piano and turning it into language precise enough to hold weight, words strong enough to be quoted at funerals, whispered in hospital rooms, taught to children learning what faith costs. Bill has described it this way: he arrives with the feeling, and she arrives with the language, and between them they make something neither could reach alone. That is a marriage, and it is also a ministry. And at 90 years old, whenever Gaither talks about his family and his legacy, he begins with Gloria, because she is the origin of the story he's most proud of telling. Suzanne, Amy, and Benjamin Gaither didn't grow up watching their parents work from a distance. They were on stages. They were in recording sessions. They attended homecoming events and watched their father introduce the legends of gospel music to audiences who had grown up loving those voices. And now there are grandchildren, which has added an entirely new layer to the way Gaither talks about legacy. Hearing a grandchild sing one of his songs not because they were told to, but because the song means something to them that, he has said, is more than he ever thought to ask for. The privilege of having written something that outlives the moment it was written, something that becomes another person's comfort and another family's anchor, sits heavily on him in the best way. When people ask what he hopes his grandchildren remember about him after he's gone, the answer has never been the awards, never the videos, never the shelf full of Dove Awards, or the Grammy, or the gold records. What he wants them to carry is something quieter and harder to manufacture. The knowledge that he believed what he sang, that the faith was never a performance, that when the microphone was switched off and the cameras were packed up, and it was just family around a table on an ordinary evening, he was still the same man who had stood on those stages. That the person his grandchildren knew at home was the same person his audiences saw in public. That kind of integrity, he has said, is the only legacy that matters to him. Gaither is 90 years old and has lived long enough to bury many of the people he loved most. Vestal Goodman, Jake Hess, George Yuntz, J.D. Sumner. One by one, the voices from that original homecoming gathering have gone ahead, and Bill has stood at many of those memorials, played piano, while rooms full of people wept and helped hold together a community that found itself grieving again and again. And through all of that loss, the message he has carried has never shifted. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. That line is not a lyric being quoted. It is a testimony being given, and the difference between those two things is everything. Growing older has not made Gaither uncertain. The interviews from his later years reveal a man who speaks about his faith with a directness that has no anxiety in it, no performance, no hedging. He believes in the resurrection. He believes he will see again the voices he has lost. He believes the songs they sang together in that Alexandria living room will mean something on the other side of this life. He has said, more than once, that he is more settled now than he has ever been. That the older he gets, the more certain he becomes, not less. That is the message he has given his family. Don't be afraid. It's all true. Every word of it. There is a question that follows every songwriter who lives long enough. Do you know which of your songs will last? Gaither's answer has always been honest and a little humbling. No, he says, you never know. He Touched Me started as a song that became a standard recorded by Elvis Presley and won a Grammy. The King Is Coming became an anthem. I Am a Promise became a song that parents have sung to children for decades, generation after generation, passing it along like a family heirloom. None of those songs were written with permanence in mind. They came out of necessity, out of the specific Tuesday afternoon, when faith felt thin, and the only way through was to put the feeling into a melody. Which brings us to the most important song Bill Gaither ever wrote, and the reason it is inseparable from today. The year was 1970. Bill and Gloria Gaither were expecting their third child, and the world outside their door in Alexandria, Indiana, was fracturing Vietnam. Political violence, social upheaval, the feeling that the ground was shifting under everyone's feet. Gaither has described experiencing what many parents in uncertain times have felt, a quiet, gnawing fear about what kind of world he was bringing a child into. He went to the piano. What came out of that session was not a celebration. It was a question being fought to the ground by faith, fear being pinned down and refused. God sent his Son. They called him Jesus. He came to love, heal, and forgive. He bled and died to buy my pardon, and an empty grave is there to prove my Savior lives. And then the chorus, the 4 lines that have been sung at more funerals and more hospital bedsides and more Sunday morning services than any of us will ever be able to count. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. What makes that song matter on Bill Gaither's 90th birthday is the context it came from. He wrote it because he was afraid. He was not a man of unshakable certainty sitting at a piano, dispensing comfort from a position of strength. He was a man choosing faith in the middle of fear, deciding to press through instead of collapsing under it, and then writing down what that choice felt like from the inside so that other people could make the same decision when their own fear arrived. The third child Gloria was carrying when Gaither wrote that song grew up to be Benjamin Gaither, who is alive and well today. Benjamin grew up surrounded by a song his father wrote for him before he was ever born. A song that said, in the plainest terms possible, you are worth bringing into this world because he lives. That is a birthday message. Not just for Benjamin, not just for the Gaither family, but for every person who has ever pressed play on a Gaither Homecoming video at 2 in the morning because the grief was too heavy to sit with alone. For every family that has gathered in a hospital waiting room with nothing but that chorus to hold on to. For every child who learned to sing about faith before they understood what faith actually costs to keep. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Bill Gaither is 90 years old, and the message has not changed. He has watched trends cycle through gospel music and move on. New voices have risen. Old ones have gone quiet. The industry has shifted in every direction it can shift. And through all of it, the thing he has told his family and through his music told all of us is the same thing he knew when he sat down at that piano in 1970, with fear in his chest and a song pressing its way out. Because he lives, all fear is gone. 90 years. 90 years of songs that found people in their lowest moments and reminded them that they were not alone, that he is risen, that it is all true. If there is one gift that stands above everything else in Bill Gaither's body of work, above the Dove Awards, the Platinum Albums, the Homecoming video franchise that changed what gospel music looked like on screen, it is this. He made the gospel feel personal, ancient truth, delivered in language precise enough to feel like it was written for the specific Tuesday you are having right now. That is a life's work. That is a calling answered fully, faithfully, across 9 decades. Happy 90th birthday, Bill Gaither. The world is better because you sat down at that piano. Before you go anywhere, take a moment here. Because if you watched this entire video, there is a reason for that. You didn't find your way here by accident. Something in you needed to hear this today, and that is worth pausing for. Maybe you grew up in a church where Bill Gaither's music filled the sanctuary every Sunday morning. Maybe your grandmother kept the homecoming tapes stacked on a shelf, played so many times the cases cracked along the edges. Maybe you remember sitting in a pew as a child, not yet old enough to fully understand the words, but knowing the way children know things before they have language to describe them, that something true was happening in that room when those voices came together. That is what the Gaither Homecoming legacy actually is. It doesn't ask for your credentials. It doesn't require you to have everything figured out. It meets you exactly where you are and holds steady until you can stand on your own again. And maybe you're watching this at a point in your life when you really needed that reminder. Maybe things are hard right now in ways you haven't told anyone about yet. Maybe you've lost someone. Maybe your faith has been running thin lately, not gone, but stretched, pulled in too many directions at once. Maybe you just needed 20 minutes with something that reminded you that the story isn't over, that the grave is still empty, that because he lives, tomorrow remains possible. If that is you, there is one thing I want you to do right now. Leave a comment. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't need to be eloquent. A sentence is enough. Leave a memory, the first Gaither song you ever heard, the one that carried you through the hardest year of your life, the one your mother sang while she cooked, the one that played at a funeral and somehow made the grief bearable. Leave a birthday wish for Bill. Share your favorite lyric from Because He Lives, or He Touched Me, or any song from the Gaither Vocal Band catalog that has meant something to you. Leave whatever is sitting in your chest right now, because this community is real. The people who watch these videos, who grew up on gospel music, who carry these songs around with them through ordinary life, they are real people going through real things. And when you leave a comment, you are reaching a stranger who has been exactly where you are, who needed the same song at the same dark hour, who will scroll past and feel less alone because of what you wrote. Don't underestimate that. If this is your first time finding this channel, here is what we do. We celebrate the men and women who gave their lives to gospel music artists like Bill Gaither, Gloria Gaither, Vestal Goodman, Jake Hess, George Yuntz, and the entire Homecoming family. And we tell the stories that don't always get told. The early years, the hard seasons, the moments of doubt that came before the breakthroughs. The backstage truth behind the public ministry. We believe the people who wrote and sang and recorded this music deserve to be remembered and understood as full human beings, not just performers, as people who chose faith out loud in front of the world and kept choosing it year after year, regardless of what it cost them. If that matters to you, this channel was built for you. Hit subscribe right now. It's free, and what you get in return is a front row seat to every story we tell and every milestone we honor together. We don't want you to miss a single one. For those who have been here through the other tributes and the other birthdays and the other deep dives into the history of gospel music, thank you, genuinely, from the bottom of our hearts. When you share these videos and tag a friend who needs to hear a particular story, when you leave a comment that says you cried through the whole thing and needed every word of it, that is what makes this work worth doing. You are the reason this channel exists. Now, one more thing before we close. Somewhere tonight, Bill Gaither is celebrating his 90th birthday with Gloria. With Suzanne, Amy, and Benjamin, with grandchildren who grew up knowing that Because He Lives was written the year their father was born, he probably won't see this video. But if somehow these words travel to him, or if someone who loves him sees this and carries it back, here is what every person watching needs him to know. The songs found us, all of us. In the specific, ordinary, heartbreaking moments of ordinary life, the songs showed up. Because He Lives played in the waiting room. He Touched Me played at the altar on the Sunday when someone finally decided to stop running. The King Is Coming played on a morning when we had nearly given up on Sunday mornings altogether. The songs found us, and because they found us, we kept going. We got up off the floor. We drove to church when we didn't feel like it. We opened our Bibles on the mornings when we weren't sure we believed anymore. We chose tomorrow. We chose faith. We chose to keep living because He lives. That is Bill Gaither's 90th birthday gift to the world. Not a concert, not a new record, not an event. The gift is every person still standing because of what he wrote. Every person who made it through a season they didn't think they would survive. Because a song he put together in a living room in Alexandria, Indiana 50 years ago told them the truth about fear and faith at exactly the right moment. Happy birthday, Bill. We love you, we honor you, and we will keep singing your songs long after we can count the years. Leave your birthday message in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video with someone who needs it today, and we will see you in the next one. God bless you.